Good morning, guys. Welcome to a beautiful October 24th here in West Florida. Or, excuse me, I'm on East Florida now. And Mark, how are you this morning in Connecticut?
I'm pretty good. Reading about this Alaska Airlines pilot tried to shut off the engine mid-flight.
What
Wow.
a bonehead, right? 80 counts of attempted murder. He's done.
Well, obviously the dude has got some mental issues.
Morning, Steve and Sean.
It's like I think that's what happened to that. What was that Malaysian flight that disappeared? I think that was probably the captain took it down.
Yeah, I just don't understand how they
Remember that
can't
one?
find any of that. Yeah, they still haven't found a lot of that wreckage. Doesn't make any sense.
All right, so let's see what's going on in the news today. We'll check out the Wall Street Journal here.
They doing cashless bail, Steve? We're going to go full pretrial release?
Well, we should just get rid of the police. We don't need them.
Man, this place would be a complete nightmare without cops.
Of course. If you read like all the founding fathers writings, they knew that people were susceptible to power and what they would call it their um their
Own selfish
emotions and so
intentions.
forth.
Yeah.
Now it's like you got all these like it's like you got these like academics that are like these like goody like oh yeah, everyone we'll just go on the honor system. Let's defund the police. We don't need them.
Well, you know what? I'm very proud of these people and that are pulling their funding from Harvard. After watching what some of these people on these college campuses are saying about the Jewish people, that's just completely wrong. I don't even understand how they're getting away with doing that. I mean, I know we have free speech, but man, I mean, it's I don't know. There's a real problem with this Nazism and this hate speech towards the Jewish people. It's
Well,
really a
there's people
bad,
are
bad.
stupid, man.
It's
Yeah.
ignorance, and it's so disgusting, man. It just really is.
Oh, I saw some protests and there was like these people that were obviously gay people and they're holding these signs saying like free Palestine. And it's like,
First ones get their heads chopped off.
yeah, you know what would happen if a gay person walked through Palestine? They'd get thrown off a roof.
It's just ignorance. It was just a pile of different, far strong extreme groups that are flung together into this hodgepodge that they've got nowadays. And I believe that Antifa is part of Hamas. I believe that they're trained the same way. And I don't understand how we can find a guy in the middle of Montana with a satellite and we can get his facial recognition, but we can't find those Antifa people that were right in the middle of those crowds, killing all those or beating people up and blowing places up during the summer of 2020 and 2021. That's
Well,
insane.
because they're too busy trying to frame Trump for stuff. That's why.
Everything and not paying attention to the rest of the world around us and letting us just get flogged.
Wait,
Good
this
morning,
action in
Avi.
these banks yesterday was pretty weak. Look at this.
Yeah.
See how when I say the action was weak, what I mean is that if you look at the course of the day, just the 1 day chart, right? So it looked like we were going to rally, but then as we go into the close, we get this big sell off. And we actually closed at a lower price than the open was. So this is you know, I don't even know what you call this, like a head fake, or it looks like there maybe was a reversal coming, but then we got up close to this price level here, and that's where the sellers came out of the woodwork and they knocked the thing all the way back. So I think the market is looking up a little bit this morning, which is to me a little bit surprising, but it's nothing like dramatic. Even yesterday, like SPY looked like it was going to have a pretty good day, but by the close, so you got all the way up to here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the high trade there, and then by the close. So think about this. So during the course of the day, the um, the bulls were kind of like in charge, right? But then by the end of the day, the bears pushed them all the way back, and we got back to where we closed, right around our opening price. So that was pretty weak action too. This morning we're up a little bit, but still though, we're still playing with this 422 level. So maybe it takes a little bit of time to play out and see what happens. All right, so we're going to go look at our technology sector. See if we could figure out where the strength is coming from this morning. All right, yeah, so tech is looking up This is where the strength is coming up. It's looking up about 70 basis points. So remember, there's a lot of earnings. I think 40% of the S&P reports this week. So I think we're going to look to see, is the consumer strong, and what kind of interest, what kind of an effect interest rates are having on things. So this looks, I guess, a little bit of a kind of a decent rebound there. Go look at our healthcare stocks. Yeah, now look at where healthcare stalled out, right? Talk about like your market memory. So we get to, so it's not a coincidence that this is where we stalled out. It was a former support level.
Mm-hmm.
So, so, so there's people who sold back here who regret their decision to sell when the price goes higher, and they tell themselves they're going to buy their shares back if they can get them at the same price they sold them at. So they put their buy orders at the same level they sold at, and if there's enough of them, what will support become support again. So it's not a coincidence that this is where this sell-off has kind of come to a halt for now. I don't see it trading in the pre-market, although that has to be wrong, which is probably traded. All right, so next up, we're going to look at our financial sector. Yeah, I mean, I got the fiber in, so it's not nothing on our side there, Mr. Steven. At least I hope not.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it slow down.
All right, so here's our financials, and this is like probably still the most important thing to watch. And we talked about the weakness in banks. So a lot of times, this is what has to happen before a market goes lower. What was support converts into resistance, and that sets the stage for the next move lower. So look what's happened here. This level here is 32.40. It was support. Yesterday's high trade was 32.36. So that could be the first day of this level converting into support. And then usually they hang out maybe 3 or 4 days, and then they start to go lower. And this morning, we're still below it. So watch XLF and 32.40 level. It's probably the most important thing to watch. Because if the financials don't get back above this over the next few days, what happens is there's people that want to sell. That's what a resistance level is. And they notice there's other sellers coming into the crowd. They get the sense that there's other sellers, which is why the price isn't moving any higher. So some of these sellers start to get anxious, and they start to think like, hey, there's other sellers coming to the market here. They might be willing to sell at a lower price than me. So if that's the case, that's who the buyers are going to go to. So I'm going to have to reduce the price I'm willing to sell at. And then you get this like snowball effect. You get all these like nervous traders kind of trying to undercut each other. And that starts a snowball effect. Like that's why sometimes when you get to resistance, like here, you don't just like go sideways. You get to resistance and then you sell off. And that's because we get these nervous sellers who are undercutting each other. So this is our financial sector. So very important to watch here, I think. I think this is probably like the number one thing to watch. And interest rates. So if market's up a little bit, interest rates are probably down a little bit. So let's see here. See if I'm right. All right. Well, hasn't opened yet. What time is it?
8:09.
I think we got to wait till 8:30 for this to open. All right. Now, when we looked at the consumer discretionary sector yesterday, we saw that this is looking kind of vulnerable. So here's the sector, but the two biggest stocks in this sector are Tesla and Amazon, and Tesla and Amazon are both sitting on clear support. So if we look at Tesla, right, look at where it is. It's just kind of hanging out. It's up a little bit this morning, but for all intents and purposes, we're still at the support level. This line here is 212.75, and we closed at 212.08. So we got to watch this. And this, we do have the lower highs here. This could be telling us that the support's going to break. This is what we call our descending triangle type thing. I don't really pay attention to too many patterns, as you all know, but I do pay attention to this. And you get these highs are forming at a lower level than the peak before. See, markets go in peaks and valleys. And if the peak forms at a lower level than the previous peak, then that tells us that the sellers are getting more aggressive as time is passing here. This is our, you can even kind of see it here, right? See how there was support, and then you got these descending triangles, or these descending or lower highs, and told us that the support was going to break. So if you think about what's going on here, is that you got your buyers are kind of just content with staying down here, but the sellers are getting more aggressive and they're willing to push the price lower. So this looks pretty weak. So that's Tesla, and then Amazon is the other big one, which who is reporting? Do they report today, or do they report? Or
I think they report today. Let me look it up.
I think Google reports today. But anyway, this is sitting right on the support level too. So if you think about it, right, you got 40% of the discretionary sector is sitting right on these well-defined support. So it's either going to reverse or it's going to break down. It's not going to stay like, at the same level for multiple days.
October 26th after the close.
So that's Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So anyway, we can see that this price level was a resistance level, then it became a support level. Now we can look at other stocks in here too, in the consumer discretionary sector, which we were actually doing yesterday. So here's the sector. So Amazon and Tesla are about 40% of the sector. These are just the top 10 holdings. Let's see how many names are in here. All right, so there is 35 companies. Oh, wait, that's the utility sector, actually. Top fund holdings. There we go, right there. All right, so there are 58 companies in the sector, and two of them, like, look at that. So Amazon is 23%, Tesla is 18%. Then you get some of these other guys, but then by the time you get to Ford, why would Ford be in this?
Why would Las Vegas Sands Corporation be in there, Mark?
I have no idea.
And Best Buy.
I haven't, because this is discretionary. Maybe because it's considered luxury.
Yeah, maybe.
But you get down to these companies here, and there's not even like 1%.
Yeah.
So ultimately speaking, if you're trading Domino's, the action in Amazon is going to affect Domino's because these stocks all have some kind of correlation. But anyway, so we can look at Nike all right, yeah. So Amazon and Tesla are right on support. And then the next two biggest names are Nike and McDonald's, and they're each right at resistance. Well, actually, McDonald's looks like it even kind of failed. So that's McDonald's. And then we got Nike. So this is at resistance as well. So think about it. The four biggest companies in this sector all look like they're kind of technically vulnerable. You got two are sitting right at support, and you got two that are right at resistance. So if the support breaks, and if these guys roll over at resistance, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the sector. All right. I saw someone on the news this morning say industrials have been acting well. So let's see if they're right or not. And they're not. I mean, does that look like it's acting well to you?
Well, I mean, if you're bearish, yes.
Yeah, it's this is why you gotta be careful of everything you hear on the news. You got to kind of take with a grain of salt. Anyway, to me, this looks like it's pretty bearish here. So market's looking up a little bit on a little bit of a bounce in tech, but the rest of the market's looking pretty weak. Now let's see what oil is doing, because I have a feeling there's going to be a trade here pretty soon.
There's got to be. I don't know how the price is still below 100.
Huh. Well, I would say probably not a trade yet, but I mean, we got pretty well-defined support. So support would be around 83.20, and then up around 93. So 83 and 93, I guess, are the two levels where we would start to get interested. 83, we look for a bounce, and then if we get up to 93, we look for some kind of a sell-off. And as a matter of fact, you know what? I was going to show this to you. Where is it? I did my teaching newsletter, lesson newsletter.
Oh, sweet.
Actually, this is not it. Teaching newsletter. Yeah. So I'm gonna just do these like every week, just do these like basic lessons. So I got to record this and I'm gonna upload it this morning.
So this will be
But
included
anyway,
in every one of the plans that we have with Stock Market Jobber. It'll be a digital download that you can download to your computer and in the plan, the membership.
yeah. So we talk about interest rates, but then here's where we're talking about oil. And I got to mess with this. I don't really like the format. But if we get up to 93, there's a good chance we reverse, and then you could think about trading something like this. This is our inverse energy ETF. So this traces this energy sector, which is going to include natural gas. But I mean, if it's a way to play oil, if oil starts to go down, this is going to go inverse to it. So this is going to go up, and it's going to go up by about twice as much as the sector does. So if you're a retail trader who doesn't trade options or who doesn't trade futures, you have to understand that there are ways that you can get exposure to these different things. So if you want exposure to, actually, you can get this one here too, is the drip. This is the oil and gas exploration. So this is going to be inverse to this particular industry, but these things are all very correlated, right? So there's XOP. So this is the oil and gas industry, and then this is the energy sector. So the industry is part of the sector. But you see how close they are?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're basically just plays on oil. So if oil starts to gets up to 93 and goes lower, you could look at something like this, or you could look at what is it, ERY? Yeah, you can look at ERY. Mm-hmm. But I mean, look how similar the charts are, right? So anyway, that would be an example of letting the market tell us what to do. Oh, just got another email. I'm gonna have to block Benzinga, man. I get so much stuff from them. It's like ridiculous.
They blow me up as well. It's crazy.
It's like, God, it's like I get an email every hour, you know, like, oh, how to make 800% in 10 minutes. All right, so I just want to look at natural gas. Man, this had quite a round trip here. I don't know what happened here.
It's that Widowmaker, man.
It's pretty bizarre. All righty. It's going to be cold. It's supposed to be freezing up here. We had frost this morning.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's nice, though. It's nice when it's cool because I can take Clifford out. He doesn't really do well in the heat anymore.
Yeah.
Anytime it's like above 80 degrees, he gets really like out of breath and so forth and so on. All right, so let's see what else is going on here. 3M says business is improving, boost the guidance. All right, let's take a look at 3M. Well, I mean, the stock has been in a free fall, and it's only up about $3. So, gosh, look at this.
Wow.
So, wow, this stock is the lowest it's been in friggin' a decade.
Man.
Huh. Now, what does this tell us? This must tell us something. Manufacturing, industrial conglomerates. You know, I mean, it's easy to get caught up in like the AI stocks and so forth, but sometimes these big industrial companies, they can kind of give you insight into like what's going on in the economy. And I mean, this looks pretty bad here. So let's see what's going on here. 3M's adjusted earnings rise, net sales falls. 3M expects to finish healthcare spinoff. What the hell are they doing in healthcare?
I didn't know they were in healthcare.
3M has been filling out the healthcare companies. Yeah, well, this is what happens to these companies. When I was in business school, the big like expression then, like now the expression is like disruptive technology or whatever
Right.
these terms come in and out of vogue, was core competency. And you wonder like, well, gee, why has 3M done so poorly? And it's like, well, I mean, maybe they're making some kind of healthcare tape, like Band-Aids or something. I don't know. But when companies start getting away from what they do and they start branching out into other things, it's usually a sign that the end is kind of coming. It's like on like on TV, whenever they add like a new character to a show.
Yeah. I
That's
know. When the story kind of gets flat, they throw this extra character in there to spice it up and it does nothing.
yeah. So it's like, I thought these guys were an industrial company. What are they doing in the healthcare industry? So, so these companies branch out into these different things that sometimes don't make sense.
It says we're in safety and industrial, transportation, healthcare, and electronics, healthcare, consumer, corporate, and unallocated. The safety industrial. Let me finish reading that. They do personal safety. They do surgical supplies. You know what? 3M does make the tape. Where they do the new skin, where they don't do sutures anymore. Have you seen that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they make that.
Well, it hasn't really helped their stock price, that's for sure.
No, it hadn't. You'd think that in the healthcare they'd be killing it, being able to triple and quadruple charge or 500% charge people.
Come on, man. Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah, stock performance. The company still faces an investigation in Belgium where water emissions from a company plant allegedly contained blah, 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 10 times higher than the legal limit. Well, all right. So what else is reporting today? We got, I think Facebook is reporting. So let's take a look over there. Actually, let's look at the communication services sector. This is where Facebook and Google live. All right. And we're pretty much right in the middle of a range here. But this is a good example of a trading range, right? So up around here, you get your resistance, which is the large group of sellers. Now, when a market's moving higher, we got to think about it in terms of supply and demand. So if a market's moving higher, it's out of equilibrium. There's not enough supply. When we get to a resistance level, well, all of a sudden, there is enough supply to fill all the demand. So some of the traders that want to sell, they notice, oh, gee, the price isn't moving higher anymore. So that must mean that there are new sellers coming into the market. So this is where you get people start to get nervous and they start to like undercut each other. And so you get to resistance and you sell off, and it's a psychological thing. It's because you get nervous sellers undercutting each other. Now, the opposite is true when the market's going lower and you get to support. There are traders who want to buy it and they're watching it trend lower. Then all of a sudden they notice, hey, it's not trending lower anymore. That must mean that there are new buyers coming into the market. So then the buyers get nervous and they start to outbid each other because the sellers are going to go to whoever is willing to pay the highest price. So you give clear resistance, we get to resistance and we sell off. We get to clear support, we get to support and we rally. And this is all because of psychology. You get resistance at a level that was resistance before because you have investors or traders who bought back here who regret their decision to do so when the price goes lower. And they tell themselves, hey, if this gets back to my level, I'm going to sell and get out at break even. So because of these remorseful buyers selling, you can get resistance at a level that had been resistance before. Now, the opposite is true on the bottom here. You get support at a level that was support before because seller's remorse. There's people who sold and then the price goes higher and they're like, I made a mistake. If it gets back to my price, I'm going to buy shares back. So getting to resistance and selling off, getting to support and rallying, resistance staying intact for a while, support staying intact for a while. These are all the result of investment psychology. So when we look at a chart, that's what we're looking at. Look at this resistance here at the $60 level. I mean, this was intact for let's see, from June 22 through May of 23. So almost a year. Real clear, right? And then down here we have our example of what was support turns into resistance. And then what was resistance turns into support. So for whatever reason, this particular ETF likes these levels 68.80, 65.50, 60, 52.50. Why is it not like 54 or 55? And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know why this particular ETF happens to like these levels, but the bottom line is that it does. All right. So let's go look at Facebook. Whoops. Our friend Mark Zuckerberg. Can't. Wonder if that guy has any friends.
I'm sure he's got fake ones. People that he pays.
Yeah, people that want his money. All right, so here's Facebook, and we could see clear resistance. So it's the same principle, right? I mean, even though this is a stock, we were just looking at an ETF. Well, what we're really looking at is the psychology of the people that are doing the trading. So let's see. And if this starts to go lower, this probably around 290, I'd be looking for support, and then on the upside about 325. Then Google here. What do we got here? So this is trading up a few dollars in the pre-market. Look at that, right on this line here.
Mm-hmm.
So resistance became support, and now it's like this line is literally, let's see, 138.20, and we're trading at 138.20. So it's not a coincidence that this is where we've kind of run into a little bit of resistance this morning. I'm surprised that these strikers have not really. Well, actually, Ford is starting to look like it's finally maybe breaking down a little bit here, because these guys are still on strike, right?
You don't hear. I've been watching the war. I haven't been listening for any strike news.
These people are so lazy and entitled. They're going to just end up putting themselves out of business. The auto industry should have gone out of business 15 years ago, and it would have if the government didn't bail it out.
Yep.
So now, look at this. GM withdraws guidance. It's like, we want to get paid X dollars an hour for 40 hours a week, but we're only going to work 32.
The cars are unaffordable, Mark, for the average everyday Joe. You can't buy a new truck. I mean, my God, it's a house payment.
Yeah, the stocks are really kind of starting to break down. Well, I just think this sense of entitlement is just so, pathetic. When you hear these people talk, it's like they just don't really understand how business works. And it's like, oh yeah, so we can get paid 150 grand a year for working 4 days a week, 8-hour days where we get an hour lunch break, we get coffee breaks, we get 30 days a year off, we get all these great medical insurance. If they're going to end up putting these companies out of business, and then no one's going to have a job.
Man, that sounds like a job at the Social Security Administration.
Yeah, dude. All right, so let's see. GM posts better than expected earnings, but then they're withdrawing their guidance. So it's not really doing much in the pre-market. I don't know. I just think it's like, it's just like this sense of entitlement. Like, you should be glad you got a job instead of bitching.
You know what's crazy? We're at probably the most treacherous point we've ever been. Not treacherous, that's the wrong word, but we're at a very pivotal point in history right now, and the market doesn't seem to even think twice about it. I mean, you would think there would be a lot more fear than there is.
Well, things could turn really quick.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve, they're 88 to 100K for a truck. He's asking about it.
Yeah, it's just really sad, I mean, what passes as an intellectual, some of these like academics, you got this idiot, what's her face there, Talib, screaming and ranting about a story that's been proven to be false.
Yeah, she's just stirring.
But in her weak mind, in her narrow mind, she probably thinks it's true.
Mark, I don't know. Do you watch Mark Levin at all?
Yeah, sometimes.
He did a story the other night on the Muslim Brotherhood, And I don't know if you followed them, but Obama had a lot of the Muslim Brotherhood working in the White House for him. And you can look that up. That's all researchable and known information. But the Muslim Brotherhood are the people that support Hamas. And they have always supported Hamas. And they had a meeting which they caught them on FBI. The FBI had the room taped, and they had the leaders of CARE. They had the leaders of the PLAU, the United States Palestinian Liberation Organization. They had all these people together in a room, and they were discussing and plotting out exactly what they've been doing, getting into Congress, getting them some politicians, getting this stuff taken care of, getting this taken care of, getting this taken care of, so that they can all line it up to take out Israel. And we've walked right into it and played right into their hands. So if the FBI knew about it, why didn't they stop the whole entire thing? They've already gone to trial with this one issue that they've talked about. You need to watch that episode of Life, Liberty, and Levin. It's going to blow your mind.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not surprised.
No, I'm not either, especially after you look at the fact that you've got 3 Iranians that are working in the State Department. One of them's still there, and they were sympathizers. And then you've got your guy that was working the nuclear deal. He's being looked at for espionage. So, I mean, listen, it can't be any clearer that we are completely compromised right now, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's sad. And the fact that you got this guy who's running the country who's like just so blatantly crooked. It's like, all right, so the guy becomes a senator, and 2 years later he buys a 10,000 square foot mansion.
Yeah, it's insane.
I mean, unless his wife had money, Dr. Jill, who isn't even really a doctor. Well, I guess she's kind of a doctor. But how insecure can you be when you're 75 years old to insist on being called doctor? It's like, I can see if you're like 15, but when you're 75, it's like you should, overcome that stuff. And I don't know, the whole thing is just such a, Biden, the president of the United States, goes out there and tells a blatantly false lie. Oh, I was at the trade centers the day after they fell. And it's like, dude, you weren't,
Yeah, no, he's just lied his entire life. He doesn't, I don't think he tells the truth.
It's like he's a pathological liar. Like he was on one of the Sunday shows a few months back, and he was talking about gay marriage, and he was saying like, yeah, when I was 16, I was with my father, and he was like, Joey, you see those men over there? I guess it was like a gay couple. See those men over there, Joey? They're just about love. As long as they're in love, that's all that matters. So he's like, oh, I had an epiphany that, gay marriage should be legal. I was like, okay, well, then why did you vote against it for 50 years when you were a senator?
Mark, you know good and well as I do, in 1950, that shit was so out of phase that it wasn't even, they would get beat down if they ever got Saul doing that. His daddy didn't say that to him.
I know, he just makes it up.
Lying.
He just pulls it out of there.
It's just disgusting. And then to watch what
he talked about taking the Amtrak.
We got an NEE report today. Any thoughts from Windward Smith?
NEE, Next Energy. Well, I think this is really going to be more about what goes on with interest rates. Because if rates keep moving higher, this is going to keep moving lower regardless of what the earnings are. And that's because people generally buy dividend stocks for the yield. Now look at the yield here. It's 3.6%. Well, as we've seen, the 10-year bond is yielding about 5%. So people will be selling their utilities and buying bonds. So I think that's what you got to kind of watch here is this. And I do think that rates are going to continue to go higher. I just think that this is kind of a little bit of a consolidation once we got to 5%.
Hey, Mark, you got a question from Avi here.
What's that? I don't see it.
Is it worth trading a binary? Here, I'll put it on the screen.
In a binary situation, that can change. Yeah. I mean, when we want things that are going to, like when something gets to an important price level, it moves one way. It generally moves one way or the other. It's pretty rare for it to just kind of go sideways. So the best traders are able to change their opinions, right? Like for example, something gets to resistance, and that's your maybe you bought it down here, and then it gets to resistance, and you sell it at resistance. But then guess what happens? The resistance breaks and it keeps going forward. Well, then you could just forget about your prior trade and just jump back in and just go long again. If it looks like it's going to get to resistance and roll over, then you could go on the short side. You got to be like in tune with the market and let the market tell you what to do. But the best traders can admit to themselves, hey, I'm wrong. I need to switch what I'm going to do. And a lot of people have a hard time doing that because people don't want to admit to themselves that they're wrong, or they don't want to have to take a little bit of a loss. But, when I used to trade with Steve Cohen over there at SAC, there were times where in the morning he would come in, and in the pre-market, we would be buying this, buying that. And then he sees something at like 9:31, and all of a sudden, just whatever we bought that morning, we're selling, and he goes on the other side. So yeah, I think you got to always kind of be open-minded to, one, accept the fact that you could be wrong, and two, accept the fact that things could go. You see, it's an interesting question because with my style or my kind of philosophy, is a lot of it is obviously, as you know, is about these price levels. Well, so therefore, having an important price level be your target price is a perfectly logical thing. Now, what happens when things get to important price levels? Well, they tend to either reverse or break through or break down if it's going lower. They tend not to hang out there for too long. So anytime you get if you're going with that mindset or that kind of philosophy, anytime something gets to your target price, you got to be ready for it to make another tradable move one way or the other. I think human beings have this I don't know if an instinct is the right word, but
intuition.
Yeah. Well, not an intuition either. I don't really know what you would call it, but a lot of times when people close out a trade, they kind of take the stock or whatever it was they traded off of their radar screen, whether it's for a win or a loss.
Right.
But you shouldn't do that, because once something gets to your price target, it's like it could be setting up for another move. So it's like, this like ongoing thing, right? But yeah, so I think that's a good question. Yeah, 80, 100 grand for a truck. Yep.
Is there any stocks you guys want us to look at?
For 10K. Yeah, it's the biggest waste of money you can make is buying a new vehicle.
Man, listen, I've got an 01 Chevrolet four-wheel drive, and I've been finding parts and replacing them and just fixing it up, and I'm probably going to keep this truck forever. I love it. It's easy to work on. I can get, like, I got a light switch inside. The whole entire light assembly was $22.
Yeah, these new cars are so complicated. There's just too much that can go wrong with them. All right, so Verizon reported it's not really doing that much. Well, it's up a little bit. All right, let's take a look at this. Get rid of all this stuff here, because right away something stands out to me, and that is, look at where it's trading. Right, so it's rallying on the news, and look at where it is. So it's rallying, and it got right to this former support level, and that's where we hit resistance. So there could probably be a trade here, because now this resistance is probably either going to break and it's going to make a decent move forward, or it's going to roll over and make a decent move lower.
We got an SMCI, please.
So it would be pretty unusual for this thing to, right? So this line is 3260. This is where the support was. It would be pretty unusual for this thing to, what's today, Tuesday? Like, if this is at 3260 on Friday, it would be pretty surprising. So it's probably going to make a move one way or the other. And this is where I start thinking about what market neutral option strategy, where you buy call and a put. And the idea is that you're going to make money on one and you're going to lose money on the other, but hopefully you make more on the one that's profitable than you lose on the one that's not profitable.
Right.
SMCI, SMC. Super microcomputer. So this is looking up a little bit.
God, it filled that gap and just came right back down. I wish I'd been paying attention to that. Wow, what a trade. We were watching it back here at this last blue candle that filled the gap here, Mark. That's when you started putting lines on this chart.
Well, I mean, it's looking up. I don't think there's any news. All right. So I don't see any real news. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's looking up a little bit, but I don't think this is really enough to be convinced that this trend is really reversed. So it's trading like right there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's probably just trading up with tech in general. But if it does move higher, I'd be looking for a resistance right around here, or 270. But I don't know. That doesn't really look like it would be major resistance. All right, let me just think about this for a minute here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not very clear here. I mean, we could see some of these more important longer term levels. I don't know about this though. See how we just kind of blew right through it? But I would say there's probably going to be a little bit of resistance around 270. But if we get through that, I think the next stop is up around 285. See, I don't really see anything in here that makes me think we would run into some kind of resistance. Maybe around here, there'd be some resistance like 281. So that would be for a trading target, that would probably be a logical place to have a target as a trader, because and then also too, there's probably going to be some resistance right in here. So I would look to there. I'm going to get rid of this level, or at least make it smaller. See how the closing price was right there and the opening price was right there. So this is 265. So a lot of volume, or most volume trades on the open or the close. So you're going to have people who bought here on this close and on this open who are underwater, who are telling themselves, if this thing gets back up to 265, I'm going to try to sell it and get out of it at break even. But if we get through that 265 level, it looks to me like the next stop is going to be up here. I don't really see, this is our fast move down, fast move up. One of the reasons why we get some resistance is because you have remorseful buyers trying to sell their stocks. And when you blast through these levels really quickly like this, you just don't have a lot of time for this big amount of vested interest to form. So I would say first stop, and this is what we were just talking about before, right? If you get in, it gets to 265, well, you get out for your profit. But then if it looks like it's going to get back in gear, maybe it gets to 266, 267, you jump back in, and then your next target would be up around here, 280, 281, I would say. And then on the downside, so we're looking up a little bit. I mean, you got to just kind of look at where the former bottoms were. So this would be like the pretty clear one right there. So, yeah, I mean, if I was long this, my first target would be there. Then I'd probably close out, because it might reverse and roll over. Then you can think about getting in on the short side. And if it breaks this, then it could keep. I think there's a good chance we get a pretty decent move. But all this being said, if those interest rates start to surpass 5, then my guess is it's going lower.
And Orlando would like you to look at Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Yeah, this is another example of, look at our market memory. So support from 21 September and December became support again. So right now support can become support again, as we've seen here, and then support can also turn into resistance, which is what's happened here. So the reason why support can become support again is because you have people who sold, who are going to buy their shares back because they think when the price went higher, they made a mistake, and they tell themselves, I'm going to buy my shares back if I get them at the same price I sold them at. See here, like support here becomes support here. So support becoming support is a common thing, or I should say support remaining intact is a common thing. Here we have what was support becomes resistance. Now this is because of an emotion. This is because of buyer's remorse. So there's people who bought back here who, when the price went lower, they tell themselves, I made a mistake. I'm going to get out at break even if I can. So it's not a coincidence that this is where we hit resistance. All right. So now this morning, we are. Okay. So they looks like they beat their earnings. So now we broke this resistance and look where we're trading. It's like right around there. Now, this thing really has the potential of kind of moving, right? Because we got our fast move down. But we have to remember that this is in the consumer discretionary sector. So, actually, no, I'm sorry, I had that confused with something else. So this is in the consumer staple sector. So let's take a look at what the sector looks like. All right, so the sector looks pretty neutral. So if this holds here, then there's a good chance that Coke continues to move higher. And we've had this like rapid move lower. So yeah, I mean, I think if the market holds, then Coke is going to it could have pretty decent upside here. But this is not huge. Don't let this scale distract you. From like here to here is only about $3. But
options, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, totally, dude. All right. So anyway, so I would be looking, if this comes in maybe around 48.5 is where I would think about buying it. Because we got resistance now. Resistance tends to become support. So those are the levels I would be looking at. I mean, I don't really know enough about the earnings, but I will tell you one thing though, right? So they reported, and the stock is looking up pretty big on the open. Sometimes if the news is not as good as it initially appears, you get a reversal when you get either a big open or a big close. On the close, if the news is not as bad as it initially appears, you get a reversal, and the reversal tends to happen around mid-morning, like around 10 or 10:30. And that's because like people are doing their research and they're going through the numbers, and they're saying, well, these numbers are bad, but they're not as bad as people think. So maybe we still go and start buying, or these numbers are good, but they're not as good as people think. So we're going to start selling. And that reversal tends to happen around mid-morning. So if the reversal doesn't happen around mid-morning, things usually continue to trend the way that they're going, like maybe stay the same or go slightly higher. So I would say like around 10 or 10:30, take a look at this and see which way it's breaking. Silver and gold are reversing.
Or the 48.50. What are you in reference to? Coca-Cola or SMCI?
Yeah, well, it looks like gold is reversing. See, it ran into this resistance level up here.
Yeah.
Around 19, we can call it 2000. So yeah, I think it's reversing. And then I'll look at silver. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a little bit of a reversal going on here too. Put options on Bud Light. Yeah, this looks like it's reversing well. I think gold is reversing more, but yeah, I would agree.
Anheuser-Busch, let's check her out.
Well, I think Bud Light is freaking disgusting. So Well, I would probably wait to see if it breaks this support. So this level here is about 52. Let's go say 52, 60, 52 and a half. So I wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if they're reporting, but regardless of whether they're reporting, I wouldn't. Because as long as we're above the support, there's a chance it might not go any lower. So I would probably wait for the support to break before I bought puts.
Excellent.
All right. If no one else has any more questions, I think I'm going to get going.
All right, folks. Listen, have a wonderful day.
Budweiser is friggin', it's just disgusting. And the most popular beer now is Modelo. And I actually like Modelo. I think it's pretty good.
Man, I drank some the other day with a blue polar bear on the front and some pink sunglasses. It was an IPA. Oh my God. I don't think I've ever been that wasted. And it was nasty to begin with, but about the fifth one, oh, it was so good.
I like IPAs. I actually used to bake beer. I did a pretty good job on it too. But then my daughters got born and my brewery room got turned into their bedroom. So.
Guys, have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you so much. We love and respect each and every one of you, and we hope you stick around with us.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you, guys.